Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 7th of February 2014. And the 7th of February 2014 is going to be a relatively well-known day for World of Warcraft's history. Well, really the 6th is when this news broke, but essentially, World of Warcraft has gained subscribers. This is the first time it has gained subscribers since the Mists of Pandaria launch. Now, of course, it's nowhere near the level of the start of Mists of Pandaria. I mean, we did start off this expansion with 10 million. We are now down to 7,800,000. But it's still a good move. 200,000 subscribers is decent growth, especially late on in an expansion, when honestly, growth is very rare. So anyway, yes, there is that. Now, the other thing we want to talk about is a little, just basically it's... Imagine the system as being a Twitch.tv subscription for YouTube that I've decided to sign up to and give a bit of a run. I'll talk about that in a bit, though. Of course, what we care about, and honestly what I care about the most, is World of Bloody Warcraft and this really cool news. Now, I'm going to give a few reasons why I think this happened, this increase. But first of all, let's just have a little bit of a look back in history and go through World of Warcraft subscription numbers. We're going to start off with July 2012, the last quarter of the Cataclysm, 9.1 million. Then when we move on to September 2012, the Mist launch, that took us up to 10 million. But then, in December 2012, we were down to 9.6, but the biggest drop in World of Warcraft's history was to be the next quarter. From that period to March 2013, we lost 1.3 million subscribers, taking the game down to only 8.3 million. Then there was even further increases with the June 2013 one, which took it down to 7.7 million, but here is where things would begin to end in terms of the heavy losses. What happened is with 5.2 and 5.3 being kind of well received and being basically a very good combination of patches in terms of keeping players engaged with quite a lot of content per month, we only lost 100,000. So at September 2013, we had 7.6 million. But then now, for the December 2013 quarter, they just released that they have 7.8 million, which is an increase of 200,000 over the previous quarter. First of all, as I said earlier, having a decent bit of growth at the end of an expansion, especially an expansion which has been marred by constant decreases like Mists of Pandaria, that's definitely a very good sign. I think it's because patch 5.4 was well executed, and it was just a very fantastic patch. I think a lot of people will agree. Now, I do, of course, think that its longevity may be a little bit of an issue going forward, but I will cover that in a bit. Though, first of all, let's talk about why patch 5.4 worked out so well. First of all, there was a big sale during this period, actually, so maybe this isn't patch 5.4 related, but the damn sale happened. The game was like 75-80% off. It was crazy cheap. You could get into World of Warcraft for next to nothing. And there are a lot of people, and actually I do have a video coming up tomorrow that's about business decisions, World of Warcraft, that whole kind of money spectrum. And there's a lot of people who are scared by the fact of a subscription plus an upfront fee. Upfront fee. Sometimes I just mince my words. It's really silly. Anyway, people are scared of that. And by making that upfront fee essentially something that is a non-issue with the vastly reduced price of the sale, it just means that a lot of people could try out the game. And of course, it was during the Christmas period, and it was also in combination with the mount sale. Now, the great thing about this being in the Christmas period is that people had time off work, they had time off school, so what better time to try an MMO that is renowned for taking a lot of hours out of your day than a holiday? Best time to pick up a game, right? I can personally say that I picked up World of Warcraft, I think it was either New Year's Eve 2006 or 2007, one of the two. Been here for quite a while, but yeah, it was a great move, well timed, just good business decision. And honestly, I mean, okay, it's probably common sense, but you know what? Common sense often prevails, and this time it did. So let's talk about patch 5.4 itself. Now, first of all, we have the Timeless Isle. So this boosted people up to Siege of Orgrimmar and Throne of Thunder level. This allowed them to have easy access to the more recent content of the expansion, which is fair enough. It meant that people were not put off by some boring gear grind or having to LFR through boring things, even though they may have ended up doing that anyway. So yeah, it basically meant Siege of Orgrimmar came out, people were excited for it, they could jump right into the LFR, then into Flex, etc. This was a relatively good move in the short term by bringing a lot of players up to that level. However, I would argue that in the long term, it may lead to a little bit of burnout because people would run out of things to do. I actually remember during the PTR testing for patch 5.4, I was roaming around the Timeless Isle, I killed a few mobs, I did a few quests and things like that, and I realized something. I had got like, I don't know, 7 epics, I just thought to myself, 7 epics in like an hour of work. That's mad. Clearly this is just something for the PTR so that we can get the gear and test it, right? Well, no, that is what it was like in the game. And I guess it it may have worked. Correlation does not equal causation. I still think that if they had have dropped maybe even, let's just say, 40% of the gear that they dropped in the Time of the Isle, I still think that would have been a gear progression that felt nice to people, but it also would have given the Isle a little bit more longevity. I think that it has burnt out, and when you go to the Isle now, it really is, it's kind of dead. Really, apart from people that are like coalesced in over other realms or any sort of thing like that. It's a very empty place, and I think that is because its uses just ran out for some people. They have no reason to go back there. I mean, they have the gear because they gave it out too quickly. But anyway, at least in the short term, perhaps this was a positive thing. So next, the Time of the Isle itself was a breath of fresh air. People were tired of dailies, and by giving us content that was not dailies, it at least for a month or two period kept a lot of people interested. And more power to them, it worked. In my opinion anyway. I think the Time of the Isles was perhaps lacking in structure. Perhaps, I'd say a patch 5.1 style storyline would have been nice going through it, and I know we did sort of have that via Kairos Dormu and those quests, but still, it could have been a little bit more bespoke in an actual story. Still though, Time of the Isle, overall a very good move, and a nice template for the future, so I'm very excited to see what Warlords of Draenor will bring in terms of outdoor PvE content. So next, there's PvP. And there's a lot of changes that happened with arenas. The main one is that you didn't need to form a bespoke team. What does this do? Well, it means that it's way just less formal, I guess, and that is a mental barrier to entry that a lot of people had. You can just grab any old randomer and queue up for an arena and jump in. That, in combination with probably some of the other tweaks they made or whatever, meant that PvP actually had a very large resurgence in terms of arena. Helinka recently said on Twitter that the increase in 3 versus 3 participation was really staggering in comparison to the previous patch. Now, of course, that is going to be skewed off by the fact that 3v3s did also, I think you won 40 of them, no, you won 100, and they would also give you a mount, so some people would have done that for the mount, but still, even if it was only for the mount, then that change of giving that vicious mount for the 3v3 100 wins was still a good move, because it got more people playing, and the more the people have content like arenas in the game, the more they're going to stay subscribed so they can keep on doing that content. So yes, I think the PvP team actually did a good job there, they made right decisions, and overall it has had a positive effect on World of Warcraft. Next, there is flexible difficulty. Now what this did is it allowed increased participation in the Siege of Orgrimmar. It really did give a level of progression and longevity to the raid that a lot of people wouldn't have had. There are people who were previously just able to do LFR. Maybe normal was just too formal, or it was too hard, whatever. Well, for a lot of these LFR players, they now had an entire new level of difficulty to explore, and this was a new level of difficulty that, unlike, say, LFR, would actually take multiple weeks or months to get through. By giving a lot of players a new way of consuming the content that takes months, due to difficulty and fun gameplay, of course, what Blizzard did is they basically increased the amount of people that stayed subscribed for the duration of the patch. It is, of course, completely possible that if Flex wasn't there, some people would have just jumped in for maybe a month, had a go at the Time of the Isle, maybe did the first wing or two of Siege of Orgrimmar, and then thought, yeah, that's cool, and left. And that wouldn't have been too fun. Well, I mean, it would have been fun for them, but it wouldn't have been too fun for Blizzard if you catch my drift. So there's that. Next, the Siege of Orgrimmar difficulty curve. That actually it's an interesting debate. Some people would say that it started off too easy and ended too hard or something like that, but I actually think it was great because it had such a wide variety of bosses in terms of mechanics, but also difficulty. The first 4 bosses were easy, the next few were kinda harder but still easy enough, then the next ones after that were getting a bit tricky, and then the final bosses were decently challenging. And we can see this in terms of completion rates. This meant that Siege of Orgrimmar, both on normal and flex, had lots of content for lots of people. Even if you were an LFR player who had a relatively low skill level, you could probably still find flexible enjoyment out of the first half of the siege, but maybe the latter half would be maybe just a bit too hard or a bit too time consuming. There really was a lot of content there for everyone, and also the Siege of Orgrimmar had so many bosses that a lot of people would just get to, well, have a lot of bosses, a lot of content to get through. Then next, well, that's essentially the main reasons, in my opinion, why 5.4 was good. A few problems, though. So, the Timeless Isle is probably going to run out very quickly. Unless you want, say, Xiao Hao reputation, there's really no reason to go back there outside the first 3 weeks of gameplay, so that's going to be a problem. That could lead to some decreases in the next quarter. Then, of course, Siege of Orgrimmar is only good for so many. PvE content doesn't keep a giant, well, it does keep a large amount of people interested, but not, there's still people who don't participate, right? So it's not going to do anything for them. That said, those people are probably perhaps interested in achievements and things that are, well, timeless. They don't really matter on the patch, so they're not going to be affected much by patch-to-patch changes. Still, though, it is only PvE content, and perhaps the lack of actual new PvP content that was really cool, like maybe a new arena or some sort of new battleground system, maybe that was a bit of an issue, but of course with Warlords coming and adding Trial of the Gladiator, a few other things, that won't be an issue for much longer. So yeah, then for the next earning call, we also have problems like Siege of Orgrimmar Burnout. Of course, people can only last so long in a raid tier. If this thing's going to last 8 months or 9 months, then people are just going to stop running it, because those who have completed it will have completed it, and no one else will really care. So that's a bit of a problem. Next, there's also PvP Burnout. So Season 14 has lasted for 26 weeks or something like that, and that's fine, but maybe people are a bit burnt out at PvP. That can happen. Though, with Season 15 coming, that will reinvigorate some life, there'll be a few little balance tweaks and things like that. So Season 15 should definitely tide on the PvP community for another few months. I think that's a good decision, actually, and that should help to maybe not bolster, but at least prevent a drastic loss of subscribers from the PvP community. Next, there is the pre-order for Warlords of Draenor, including the level 90 boost. I think a lot of people are going to buy this, they're going to get their level 90, and then they're going to subscribe for a month and play, because they want to get that 90 ready with some nice Siege of Orgrimmar gear. Maybe they want to get their Garrosh heirloom, therefore they play the game. So I think that could definitely happen. Then actually one last problem is that the Isle will, let's just say in a month's time, it will basically be completely irrelevant to everyone who is not new. That's a bit of an issue, but there's only really so long that a piece of outdoor PvE content can last anyway. So that's really it for these talk about the 7.6 million subscribers. Overall, it's very good. I'm actually rather pleased to see this. I think a lot of people were predicting a loss of about 200k. Personally, I was predicting it to stay within about 100,000 of where it was currently, and I think I was relatively on par there. I think that many business decisions that they made were very good, and we can clearly see that in terms of numbers. So finally, we're just going to end the show with a quick little note about a thing called Patreon. Now, I actually found this out by, I was watching a Smooth McGrew video, and I saw the description of his video with this thing called Patreon. I was like, oh, what's that? And I clicked on it, and essentially it was like a Twitch.tv subscription for a YouTuber. So if you don't know what Twitch.tv is, well, of course you know what Twitch is, but if you don't know what the subscription is, basically it's like $5 a month, and it's a way to support the content creators of whom you enjoy the content. And what it does for the content creators is it allows them to, you know, reinvest into hardware and things like that. Now, the good news about this thing is that basically it's completely flexible. It's however much you want. Honestly, I'd say $2 and I will be blown away by your generosity, because I don't know, I'm kind of humble, and hell, I look at 15,000 subscribers and my mind is blown every day. But basically, there are some upgrades that I'd like to make to the channel, and right now my YouTube revenue is enough to cover my rent, barely. And just as an example, the soundproofing foam is the thing I'd really like. And here's the problem, it's like it would cost maybe £100, £150 to soundproof my room. Now, if I were to get that all at once and get a really nice setup, it would mean I wouldn't be able to make the month's rent payment without going to my parents and taking money off them, and that would just hurt my pride too damn much for me to do it. So basically, that's what it is. It's basically just to help out with channel upgrades and things like that. There's some little goals there. They're kind of rough in terms of, you know, the actual amounts, but that's essentially what I want to do. The goals that I've put in the page are professional soundproofing, a very good, like a nice DSLR for video work, and then some computer upgrades which should allow me to have better encoding times, which will basically allow me to spend more time making the video and have less time rendering the damn thing, because that's my biggest problem at the minute. Rendering times are a pain in the arse, and I don't actually have an i7 processor, which means that I don't have hyperthreading, which is a bit of a problem when you're using Premiere Pro. But anyway, it's essentially completely optional. I don't ask anyone directly to do it. I more mention its existence and would be very humbled by anyone who would feel okay with doing that. You know, that's my kind of stance with the whole thing. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you do have problems with this, all I can say is, look, it's optional. If you don't want to be involved with it, then don't be involved. Really, if you watch my channel with adblock on, and that's fine. I never make a dime from you, and you know what? I don't care. I'm just happy that I'm able to make content that somebody else enjoys. As someone who is creative, it is simply just the most fulfilling. It's really one of the most fulfilling parts of my life is YouTube. It's kind of like my heart and soul for the last 6 or 7 months, and honestly, I want that to continue for damn years. And just little things like this would help out. So anyway, that's it for today's show. Let me know what you think of all the various things. Basically, let's just talk about the subscription numbers for World of Warcraft, because holy crap, I think a lot of people were expecting drops, and there were no drops, which is absolutely crazy and fantastic. Well done, Blizzard. And here's the question for the day, if we're going to do something like that. What do you think the next earnings call will be? I'd love to know what you guys think. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.